I'm glad to meet all of you who are interested in history and historical reenactment. My name is Daniel, and today we will start our acquaintance with uniforms and gear of the Red Army during the Second World War. So, take a seat comfortably, make tea, and enjoy! From the very ancient times, every battle group tried hard to make its warriors look different from the other ones. The reason was to make it easier to find ours and enemies. So the Red Army was not an exception. The most massive and recognizable uniforms of the Soviet soldiers during the Second World War were gimnastyorkas and trousers called galife.
Gimnastyorka itself appeared in the Russian Imperial Army in the second part of the 19th century. It was a special tunic for gymnastics, that's why such a name. At that time, gimnastyorka was being used step by step in the Tsarist army as the part of the summer field gear. And the First World War Russian soldiers have faced already in gimnastyorkas. The reason was that production of such tunics was pretty simple and cheap. And because of the fact that the main military resource of the Russian Empire were people, the government preferred to produce uniforms and equipment for as many soldiers as possible.
The Soviet Union preserved the tradition of gimnastyorkas as the main part of the soldier's uniform. So, in December 1935, a new type of gimnastyorkas were introduced.
This gimnastyorka got a turned-down collar, just like shirts. On the collar was being attached insignia, collar tabs. I heard such a version that such type of insignia was inspired by the same ones in the French army. Moreover, a cut for fastening of the gimnastyorka was placed in the middle of it, in contrast to the Tsarist one. The reason was that in the Imperial Army, soldiers wore crosses on their necks, and it could fall out if the cut was in the middle. But in the Red Army, crosses were prohibited, so it made it possible to move the cut. Also, to prevent buttons from wear out and tearing off, gimnastyorka got a flap, which hid the buttons. By the way, NKVD soldiers got gimnastyorkas without this flap. We need also to pay attention that two chest pockets appeared on the gimnastyorka. Left one was for keeping personal documents. Here we can see even a special section for it. In the right one, a soldier could put personal items, like cigarette pack. And the last thing we must notice are buttons. This gimnastyorka had special black buttons, which were 14 millimeters in diameter.
This gimnastyorka served officially to the Red Army soldiers from 1935 till 1943. But even after the introduction of new type of gimnastyorka and insignia, some military formations still used this gimnastyorka for a few times. The reason was untimely supplies.
That's why soldiers just tore off collar tabs and added shoulder boards.
However, such a situation existed mostly in 1943. By 1944, tried to change the previous gimnastyorkas for the new ones. So, in January 1943, the new type of gimnastyorka with the new type of insignia, shoulder boards, were introduced. In this uniform, the Red Army soldiers fought till the end of the Second World War. These gimnastyorkas were pretty similar to the Tsarist ones.
Researchers still try to find the reason why was made a decision to change the uniform and why it was similar. However, we do not have the exact answer today.
So, let's look at the 1943 gimnastyorka. The main difference between this gimnastyorka and the previous one is the absence of this turn-down collar.
It became standing and closed with two buttons. In addition, disappeared flap, which was hiding buttons on army gimnastyorkas. Most likely it was done in order to make the production cheaper and easier. Buttons have also become green. For attaching shoulder boards on gimnastyorka, special loops and 18 mm buttons have been added. In case if there were no loops, one side of a shoulder board was just being sewn. It is important to pay attention to the fact that chest pockets disappeared from the gimnastyorkas of NCOs and private soldiers. Many soldiers got used to carry their papers in chest pockets, so they added a small hidden pocket by themselves. By the way, there was a possibility to get a gimnastyorka with pockets, which was only for officers. In case if the gimnastyorka was seriously damaged, it was unsuitable for officers. But if it was repaired, an ordinary soldier could wear it. Just what happened with this gimnastyorka. Here, on the back side appeared a hole. This gimnastyorka could not be worn by an officer with such damage. However, after it was repaired with such a patch, it could be worn by sergeant or soldier.
The last but not least will be trousers called galife. The name of the trousers, which are narrow on a shin and wide above, come from the surname of French General Gaston Galife.
He introduced such trousers at the end of the 19th century for cavalry. Later, this type of trousers appeared in the other armies. The Soviet Union was not an exception. Galifes have been set in the Red Army and NKVD.
Red Army soldiers fought in galifes the whole Second World War. By the end of the war, they faced the only change.
Disappeared fabric knee pads, which prolong life of the trousers. Galifes were fastened with such strips below and a canvas belt above. Fly closed with famous Moss-stamp buttons.
This set of uniform was worn by soldiers and NCOs of the Red Army. For those who are interested in reenacting or already reenacting the Red Army soldiers for the whole period of the Second World War, should have two gimnastyorkas type 1935 and 1943 and galife as well. I can advise you to use galifes, early type galifes with knee pads, just like this, because this type was used for the whole period of war. I thank you for your attention and hope this video was interesting and informative for you. In the next video we will talk about headgear of the Red Army during the Second World War. So, thank you and bye.